As we're joined by veteran Jessie Jane Duff of the Organizing Committee for Concerned Veterans for America. Jessie, you heard the comments of Chairman Jeff Miller. What do you make of his assessment of where this VA healthcare scandal stands right now?
Oh, well, Congressman Miller is a proponent for vets, and I applaud him. He is calling it as he sees it. This is a disgusting debacle that's been going on far too long. Everyone's been aware of it. Even when I heard the testimony with Eric Shinseki, the doctor that was sitting by his side who has since resigned, Dr. Long, everyone's been aware of it. Even when I heard the testimony with Eric Shinseki, the doctor that was sitting by his side who has since resigned, Dr. Robert Pretzel, they even spoke about the gaming of the system that they were aware of, and they were trying to hold everybody accountable to it. They've on the VA for well over a year because veterans couldn't even get their benefits for easily 2010. My group has been focusing on the VA for well over a year because veterans, they have another line to get seen. It's appalling. It's ridiculous. It's just beyond words because I sit back and I see now it's a culture of corruption that has festered within the VA throughout the nation.
And you talk about the culture of corruption in Veterans Affairs and in the health service, but what about this disconnect at the White House? Do you believe White House spokesman Jay Carney when he says the first time President Obama learned about all this was from watching CNN back last month?
Well, he obviously has a selective memory. You know, he obviously doesn't seem to remember that the VA officials warned the Obama and Biden transition team in the weeks before, after the 2008 presidential election, that the department shouldn't trust the wait times that the facilities were reporting. They told them this. So obviously somebody wasn't keeping notes or had selective memory, like I said, because they are aware of this. I mean, every veteran knows that the care is inadequate. Everybody knows that. And it only got worse in 2009 when Secretary Shinseki took the position that he has, and I'll explain why. To his credit, he opened up the doors for Agent Orange and PTSD and Desert Storm Syndrome. But when you do that, you end up having a mass flood of veterans that come out and say, look, I've got Agent Orange issues such as cancer, diabetes. They've got various forms of problems. And it's a flood of veterans that come out and say, look, I've got Agent Orange issues such as cancer, diabetes, benefits, but now they're flooding the VA medical facilities. So instead of teaching these executives, tell us what you need, they tell them if you want to get a bonus, you want to keep your numbers low. Get an appointment within 14 days. That's why they've been gaming the system with these doggone appointments. They're pretending that the vets have only been waiting 14 days, when in reality they've been waiting as long as 4 months. For example, well, even longer in some cases. They've been deleting records. 1.5 million records, appointment records, were deleted by the Veterans Administration. And this was reported in the Washington Examiner a week and a half ago. And it was the Government Accountability Office that had released this by the Veterans Administration. And this was reported in the Washington Examiner a week and a half ago. We don't know if they exist. We don't know if they got their surgeries. We don't know if they're ill, dead, or what. We don't know. It's tragic. This is across the nation.
The breadth and depth of this, Jessie, is certainly troubling to say the least here. But I want to go back to that transition report that we talked about, the Bush administration warning the incoming Obama administration back in 2009 about the issues they're facing at the VA Center. Do you think this is a situation where the Obama administration simply ignored that advice or did not comprehend how big the backlog would be as a result of opening up treatment to folks who suffered from symptoms of Agent Orange and other issues which you mentioned?
Well, it's probably a mixture of both. I think it's
as a result of opening up treatment to folks who suffered from symptoms of Agent Orange and other issues which you
been in a management position of that magnitude. You know, when you're talking about veterans, and some people don't react until the house is burning down. Now we got veterans that are dying. We got evidence of this. All of this has finally catalyzed into an epidemic. It has catalyzed into a virus. Veterans that are dying. We got evidence of this. All of this has finally catalyzed into an epidemic. wanted to pay attention to the warning signs. You know, again, I applaud Secretary Shinseki for opening the doors for more veterans to apply for these benefits, but they were ill prepared. They've got over 300,000 employees. They've got the second largest budget next to DOD. They're the second largest bureaucracy. But what essentially has told me is that Secretary Shinseki, I applaud him for his heroism and his awesome military career, but he hung up his general stars and became a bureaucrat. In Phoenix alone, 59% of the costs at the Phoenix Medical Center go to administrative and overhead costs. 59%. That means only 41% is going to the health care of those veterans. That's an appalling amount. And by the VA's own admission, only 41% of the veterans can receive their appointments within the 14 days that is required by their own policy. So why not, instead of encouraging these executives to hide their numbers, why not applaud them to come out and say, I need more doctors, I need more nurses? One of my dear friends lives in Chandler, Arizona. He's a Marine. He is 100% disabled by the VA. He served in Vietnam. He says that he constantly has a new doctor. They tell him they're quitting all the time because they feel they cannot do their job. He gets in front of the doctor and they can only see him for 10 minutes. That's it.
Jessie,
they're that tight on time.
You mentioned the paradox of Eric Shinseki and a situation where no one quibbles with his record, his wartime record, his time as a general, but then this transition to government service, and you mentioned bureaucrat. Now, what's been interesting about this, you've heard the secretary testify that he's, quote, mad as hell. You've heard the White House Chief of Staff saying the president is, quote, madder than hell. The president has not come forward to say anything about this as commander-in-chief over the last 3 weeks. Is madder than hell their talking point? Are they going to take any tangible action?
Okay, so you can quote me on this one. They're mad as hell. They've been exposed. That's what they're mad about. They've known about this. They've known about this. I've known about scandals for over a year. I've been working with Concerned Veterans for America since last year. Let me take you back. Dorn Medical Facility has 5 dead veterans who couldn't get in on time for colonoscopies, and that was exposed by the media. We had dead veterans in Atlanta and Augusta. This is long before Phoenix ever surfaced, okay? Let's go up to Ohio, and we've got 700 sick veterans due to Legionnaire's disease that was in the water, and there are dead veterans. There's a lawsuit still pending from 2011, August 2011, by a Marine who went in there for surgery, ended up never coming out because he was infected with Legionnaire's disease and it killed him.
Well, Jessie,
so
let's go back. Let's go back even further in that, because I asked you that last question about, negligence perhaps, or indifference from the administration based on something that President Obama said back in 2009. Let's roll that clip. Last question about, negligence perhaps, or indifference from the administration based on something that President Obama said back in 2009. Let's roll that clip. I want you to respond to it.
As a nation, we'll pledge to fulfill our responsibilities to our veterans, because our commitment to our veterans is a sacred trust, and upholding that trust is a moral obligation. On that day, on Veterans Day, after all the parades and all the solemn ceremonies, a lot of veterans may ask, does America really mean it? Will America keep its promise, not simply with words, but with deeds? And since taking office, my administration has worked hard with many of you to make sure that America fulfills our obligations to our veterans and their families.
Jessie, I just wanted you to get to respond real quickly to President Obama back in 2009, based on all this new information that's come out. How does that square with the current VA controversy?
It just gives me a sense of a lack of integrity that is surfaced throughout this entire debacle. Say what you mean and mean what you say. That's what a leader does. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Don't tell me you care about me and you turn around and forget I even exist. The Veterans Administration has long been known for having substandard care for veterans. I've sat there and listened to Vietnam-era people say, well, it's better than it was in Vietnam. Well, you know what? That's like saying, well, now instead of removing your leg, now they only remove your foot. Okay, it's not where it should be in 2014. 97% of their records were still being handled manually just a year ago, and were not even automated. So I applaud the president for recognizing veterans when it's appropriate, but don't who obviously either is blatantly naive, oblivious, and incapable of knowing what's going on within his own management team. As a Marine, one of our leadership principles is know your men and know your mission. Okay? That means all of these executives throughout the entire VA are aware of this gaming the system.
And Jessie, we'll have to leave it there. We're out of time, but it was a pleasure talking with you. We do appreciate your vigilance on this issue, and we'll keep our eyes on it as well.
She has a lot to say about this, and we'll have more on this story still to come on America's Forum.